So we can coach if the person is open to us giving them some direction, and if they show resistance or closed-mindedness to taking that feedback, then we get a little bit more, perhaps a little bit more specific, a little bit more telling than asking. However, the goal is still the same. It's to change the behavior or the results to what's acceptable. The only reason why they're not open to coaching is because they're defensive, right? They're defensive either aggressively or passively. The passive one, as Jen pointed out, is where you tried to do coaching and the person didn't respond, right? You tried to give it to them in a suggested format, and this would really help, and you'd probably find this useful, and the person doesn't choose to use it. So actually, what I did is I drew up here on the board sort of the stages that we go through in terms of employee development. First, we hire people. Then we train them, hopefully adequately. Then we coach them. That's the initial stages. And we have a probationary period. Typically, it's 90 days, or it could be extended by contract. It could be longer. And in that time period, we really can make a judgment call. Can this person who I hired do the job that I require to at least a level of competency? Okay. Now what ends up happening after the probationary period ends is we go through this cycle of coaching or confronting and correcting. So if we take the coaching path and they seem receptive to the coaching, then we continue to coach. If we find back here that the person is really defensive, not willing to take the coaching feedback, we should really question whether we want that person on our team. That is the time to make the decision. If you have an employee who's already showing you signs that they're overly defensive, not willing to accept feedback, not willing to act on that feedback, I'm always surprised when I ask the boss, the supervisor, why did you keep the person? Because we needed the body? Why did we keep the person? We should be making a change. On the other hand, if we get down into the coaching loop and they're accepting coaching for a while, but then there is this issue that we might run up against and we need to confront and correct, most of the time, remember when we looked at what motivates employees and we found that tactful discipline was like number 10 on the list? Because most will never get beyond somebody just mentioning something to them. Right? Think of the employees that you've really had to discipline. And my guess is a lot of them will fit into that cave dweller category, or they might have slipped up even though they're pretty good employees. So most people will never go through written types of discipline. They'll never have to go through suspension or termination. Just the way it is. I can remember, I shouldn't admit this, I'm on camera, right? But I remember back in high school, I got suspended for doing stuff that was, I thought kind of funny and a joke. That wasn't seen that way by people in administration. A lot of people who are functioning adults had issues when they were growing up where they did something they weren't proud of or got into a lot of trouble. And somehow they reformed themselves enough to kind of stay out of jail. And even some people who've gone to jail have reformed themselves into being pretty good citizens. So what's interesting is some of us need to get maybe hit with a little bit more consequences before we smarten up. And are there some people who, despite all of the consequences and all the systems, will still continue to behave that way? Yes. Okay. The good news is, think of that as a very small percentage of the people will actually not respond to this. Most people will respond to step one in the process, which is simply telling them that what they're doing needs to change. It's unacceptable. Most people, if they knew what was going on, would change.